The following is a production of Shark Flight Media.
Now entering the nexus of geekery and guy world in 3, 2, 1, mark.
Do you know what the secret of life is? One thing. Just one thing.
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.
This is the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast.
Hey kids, welcome back to another exciting edition of the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. I am your host, Ian J. Malone, going to be joined by one of my usual partners in crime, Rob Howell, here in just a minute. Also got a special guest host filling in for Brother Steverson later, so we'll get to them in just a sec. And in the meantime, I want to say some shout outs to some folks, starting first with our presenting sponsor. That would, of course, be the fine folks over at Chris Kennedy Publishing. It doesn't matter what you're into, folks. If it's military, sci-fi, space opera, paranormal romance, urban fantasy, even stuff about the craft. If you fancy yourself a writer, they've got it all over there at Chris Kennedy Publishing. So log on to their website on the interwebs, chriskennedypublishing.com. Read about their books, their series, their different imprints, even sign up for their newsletter. Get yourself a free ebook while you're there. It's all right there at chriskennedypublishing.com. Why? Because they are message-free sci-fi with a slice of fantasy. Also want to say hi to our folks over at the Bleav Podcast Network. They have got you covered, folks. If you're podcast nuts like us, doesn't matter what you're into there either. You could be into sports stuff. You could be into pop culture stuff, geek culture, variety, horror, suspense, thriller. They got it all. Bleav.com. That's BLEAV.com. Go there, sign up for anything you like. They have got plenty of content to keep you busy. So, Rob Howell, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I am doing fantastic. It's release day for me. Deadly Fortune, the newest book from New Mythology Press in the Eldros Legacy universe, is out today. It's by Aaron Rosenberg. Aaron Rosenberg's got a huge list of credits. He's written in Star Trek universe. He's written in Stargate. He's written in Warhammer 40K, and now he's writing for Eldros Legacy. So we're exciting. It's a tale of swashbuckling and mystery and pirates and murders and intrigue and all that fun stuff. And this comes on top of last week's release of Keen Edge of Valor, the third in the Libri Valoris, the Books of Valor, the anthologies were due in conjunction with Fantasy. And that was out last week and had a great time doing the release party there at the con. And I have a book that I'm finishing that that should be out in about a month and a half. And so I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
Lots of stuff going on in the new mythology world and only getting busier.
All right, so now it's going to be interesting to see what Rob Howell has to say in our news segment, ladies and gentlemen, so stay tuned for that. Let's reach out and grab our other guest host for tonight. As mentioned just a second ago, Kevin Steverson has the night off, so we just went to the pen, as they say, and got ourselves another Kevin in the form of Kevin Ikenberry, best-selling author of, good Lord, Peacemaker, the Protocol War series, Super Sync. God, the credits are endless. Ike, how are we doing this evening, sir? Welcome to the show.
Doing well, gentlemen. Thanks for having me back. It's fun to be here.
No problem, man. Well, you know what? It's Masters Week. That is definitely one of your favorite times of year. So it was definitely time to get you into the fray and let you come on and talk some book stuff and talk a little golf stuff. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that conversation, shall we? Stand by. Let's do some news.
And now the news.
So the news is pretty well that segment where we bring fans and readers kind of up to speed on what's going on in our world as writers, right? First and foremost, that's what we do. We put words on pages and we bring them to you and hope that you buy them. So, Rob, I'll go ahead and actually, you know what? You said your spiel. I'll get to you in just a second, sir. Be patient. We're going to start with our special guest and give him the mic first. Kevin, you're a busy man. Like, you got a brand new collaboration out with Steverson that's set in the 4HU and Redacted Weapon. Folks, if you're interested in that, check the show notes. We'll throw you a link. But you stay busy with like 3-4 projects at a time, brother. So what are you up to these days, man?
Trying to catch myself coming and going most days. But yeah, like I said, the Redacted Weapon came out about a week and a half ago. Kevin Steverson and I wrapping up a trilogy of stories following a couple of young peacemakers that has really been a joy to write. Kevin is a fantastic author and a great collaborator, and we got along very well in the writing process there. And that actually comes up to be book 11 in the Rise of the Peacemakers storyline. And we will be wrapping up that entire storyline with the Peacemakers in my next individual book, The Misfits, which I have started. I'm about 6,000 words in, but working through some notes and trying to do some mapping and stuff, if you will. So that's kind of going on. But at the same time, because I do work on multiple things, I just turned in to Bill Webb at Quillcraft Press, which is a imprint of Chris Kennedy Publishing focused towards nonfiction. I turned in a book that's titled The Mercenary Guide to Story Structure, because I kind of became a story structure nerd over the course of about 5-6 years ago in my career. And it really changed the way that I write, and it honestly affected the success of my writing, being able to sell a debut novel and move that forward and such. So I'm looking forward to that coming out. No release date on that yet, but I would imagine sometime probably before midsummer, we'll see the Mercenary Guide to Story Structure come out. After that, the next major release will be my book from Baen Books, which is The Crossing, which is an alternate history, which follows one of Eric Flint's A City Shard events, which is essentially a time shard that in this particular case strikes Fort Dix, New Jersey in November of 2008 and transports a squad of Army ROTC cadets only about 7 miles to the northeast, but 232 years into the past, where they're immediately jumped by a Hessian patrol and lose a modern M16 assault rifle to the enemy, which becomes their catalyst to report to General Washington and change the course of American history.
Oh, that would be awkward.
I will tell you, I just finished an edit pass on that with the folks at Baen, and being able to go back through the manuscript. It's been a long time in development, so being able to go back through the manuscript and really see and have fun with it was tremendous. I'm very excited about that story coming out.
Well, I can tell you based off of what I was hearing in the crowd at Fantasy, a lot of folks waiting on Misfits, man. A lot of folks waiting to see how that story is going to play out. A lot of big payoffs in that one that fans of Jessica Francis and such are waiting to see how that plays out. So big stuff there. Rob, I'll go back to you, man. Obviously, a lot of stuff happening in New Mythology Press. You got anything else you want to add to that? And then anything you yourself are working on?
Well, no, not a whole lot to add right now, although we're looking at another book in June. That'll be, hopefully, we're aiming for another book, starting to get back on that book a month thing, which we were hoping to do all along, but life got in the way. And So that's, sometimes how it goes. But we're excited about a bunch of projects, and it's too soon for me to really talk about them. But there's a whole bunch of things coming down the pike, and some pretty big name authors, and I'm really excited to get to work with them. So, yeah, it's exciting times. I can't stop talking about how cool it is to be a part of New Mythology Press and where we go in the future.
Most definitely, folks. If you're a fan of fantasy reading, New Mythology Press is hot as a freaking iron right now, so definitely go check them out. Work continues on The Last Argonaut for me. That's my little foray into the salvage title universe. I've played around with a couple of short stories and a few anthologies, but this is my first novel project in that. So that's going to be the sports one that you guys have been hearing about, and it's motoring along quite well. It's probably at around 65,000 words right now. So my goal is to have the first draft in the can by the time I light out at the very first week in May. To go on a cruise for my 10-year wedding anniversary. So good times there.
Yeah, congratulations, man.
Have a great time.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're stoked about it. Tell you what, man, tough act to follow coming after Fantasy. Had an absolute blast at that con, guys. It was great to see the two of you again. Also great to see lots of other folks from CKP land and Baen land. Got a chance to spend some time with some folks that I have known through CKP, whether it's interviewing them on this show or just in passing through colleagues. But got a chance to really spend some time with some of those folks and really get to know them. Casey Morse, absolutely fantastic guy that I've known roundabout and we've interviewed on this show, but I've just never really had much of an opportunity to really sit down and have a beer with. Great guy. Melissa Altoff, also big right now in the salvage title universe. Just absolutely splendid lady to hang out with. She and I did coffee together at the airport because we shared a flight from Atlanta to Raleigh. So good folks there. The man with the golden pipes, Mac Jack Stumbos, folks. So Mike was that guy, author of This Fine Cruise series over at Theogony Books, for those who don't know who I'm talking about. So Mike is totally that guy that you want to show up at karaoke night because he's that ringer guy who just steps up on stage and quietly picks up the mic and then blows Meatloaf, I Would Do Anything for Love, out of the freaking water. So
yeah, that was pretty incredible. I mean, having the ringer was one thing, but when he started that song and started it so well, I think everybody in the audience was kind of just shocked.
Yeah, they make movies about that. The wayward guy who shows up at karaoke night and just absolutely schools the crowd, and we're all just sitting there with our jaws on the floor. So
this is all the best part of this job and going to cons. It's the people. It's getting to know you, and it's getting to know Ike, and it's getting to know Steverson and Chris Kennedy and all the on down the line with all the people you guys have talked about. There's some awesome people in this business, and I'm so glad to get to participate in it with you all and those guys that we see at Fantasy.
Well, this is an episode that we've actually been talking about doing for quite some time, with bringing Kevin on board as kind of one of our special guest hosts. We've just kind of held off on doing that until tonight. Why is that? Little known fact, guys, for those of you who know Kevin Ikenberry as an author, but maybe not so much in real life, he is a massive golf nut. And what's coming up this weekend? That would be the Masters, arguably the biggest weekend in golf on the golf calendar for the year. Now, Rob is a golf fan. I'm a casual golf fan, but I didn't quite feel comfortable talking about that stuff with an aficionado like Kevin. So I figured, well, let's tap into the old Bleav Podcast Network, see if we can go find ourselves a pro who can come in and talk about the Masters proper as it should be the case. So joining us on the show tonight would be none other than national sports betting and golf analyst Cam Rogers, host of the Lock It In sports betting show on the Bleav Podcast Network. He is also seen as an occasional contributor on a numerous range of outlets, not least of which would be CNN and CBS Sports. You can also follow him on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Cam, how are you doing this evening, man? Welcome to the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast.
What's going on, guys? Great to be with you. Happy Masters Week to you and yours. Super excited for it. Did not expect myself to be talking about Tiger Woods playing in the first major of the PGA Tour season, but here we are. It's exciting.
Yeah, that is definitely a question that is on everybody's mind as to whether or not he's going to be there or not. We're going to get to him here in just a second, but before we do that, I want to kind of set the table on what you're dealing with here, Cam, and kind of the people that you're talking with. So we're all best-selling sci-fi authors. We're also sports nuts, and that's kind of what this show is all about. It's a bit of a variety show, if you will. We have people who listen to this show who are avid sports fans. We do have a golf crowd in there, but not avidly so. So a lot of folks kind of come at something like the Masters and they understand that it's a big deal, but they don't necessarily have the passion for it that you guys have. Real quick, off the top, man, explain to that crowd what it is that makes Augusta National so special and what it is that makes the Masters kind of the weekend that guys like you and Ike here look forward to every year.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Augusta National, the Masters, rooted in tradition. There are so many ways to look at things. You call fans, patrons who have specific buzzwords that are only allowed to be said during the Masters broadcast. You have the voice of Jim Nantz, who's been doing this for so many years. You have just an electric list of winners, not the least of which would be Nicklaus and Woods and Mickelson and Garcia and Bubba Watson and Jordan Spieth and down the line from there. And there's just so many nuances to the tournament that everybody looks forward to, right? You talk about the ceremonial first tee shot that features Jack Nicklaus and other legends of the game. That, of course, on Thursday morning, you have just the sheer media attention and the joy that this tournament brings to people throughout the week. So much content out there in the industry. You have Butler Cabin, right? Putting on the green jacket on Sunday evening. You have that wonderful celebration on the 18th green. It's funny talking about tradition here with the Masters because it's actually, in fact, the newest major championship in golf, starting just way back in 1935. So, look, I mean, this is just a wonderful event. It's such a true test of your overall game. Typically, this tournament does favor the Bombers, but you have to be great all around. Your iron game has to be crisp. You have to take advantage of the par fives. You have to take advantage of the par threes. Your putter has to be absolutely electric. You have to have the experience too, and that's what makes the Masters unique. That's why you have guys like Bernhard Langer and Freddie Couples pop out of nowhere, finish inside the top 20 at their respective ages, because typically experience breeds success at this very tournament. And then you have a guy like Tiger Woods, right? 5 green jackets to his credit, and the needle mover in the game of golf. Whenever he is playing at Augusta National, he is going to bring a lot of attention to it. So overall, it's just deep-rooted in tradition. It's a wonderful television experience. And then finally, it's somewhat like the ringing in of spring. You see the wonderful azaleas at Augusta National blooming, the beautiful Georgia pines, sunshine, warm weather in Augusta National. Typically, it's Easter time, or, it's just great time to kind of look forward to spring. And of course, this week in particular, you have opening day with the MLB. So it's really just a fantastic sports week overall. There's a lot of energy behind this Masters here this week. And so it really is a fantastic event on the sporting calendar.
Absolutely. Kev, I'm going to throw to you for just a second, man. Put your golf hat on for me. You're a huge fan of this sport. You like to talk this with me pretty much any con we get together. The Masters is a special weekend, man. What does this type of thing mean to you?
Well, aside from being one of the 4 weekends in the household where I get the TV for the entire weekend, the Masters has always been, just exactly like Cam said, it's such a tradition. It is such an experience, even just to watch on television. And knowing some folks that have been through the course and been there and been part of the patronage, and the beauty of the course, even on the television, doesn't come through. And the amount of terrain on the course doesn't come through. It looks, like everything looks flat on TV, and Augusta National is not a flat golf course. So being able to see and experience the Masters, even from a television experience, is huge, because it puts you in a chance to see something that is very unique. I mean, because all of the other major tournaments, except for if you consider the Players' Championship to be the 5th major, that's a whole other podcast probably.
Right.
But all those other major championships shuffle through a rotation of courses. And the Masters is the one chance a year you get to see this particular golf course, and you get to see the best players in the world take on a course that they've all seen, they've all played before. But every single year it has its own strange nuances. The most interesting things happen on the back nine on Sunday. And it's an electric environment, and that comes through the television coverage almost every year.
Sure. Well, Cam, I'm going to come back to you for a second, man. You mentioned it right out of the top, Tiger Woods. He is the needle mover, okay? Mm-hmm. This is also a guy who's coming off of a major injury, was in a very horrific car accident last year, has spent the last several months rehabbing that leg injury. It's well noted now that he's been practicing at Augusta National, and by all rights, it looks like he's going to play. Number one, when can we expect some official word on whether or not he's actually going to give this a go? And number two, what can fans reasonably expect from Tiger Woods at this stage in his career coming off of these types of circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I was on Tiger Watch late last week, actually laying out my predictions of when he was going to announce whether he was going to play, because the last 3 times his status for the Masters was in question, he actually announced it the Friday before from 3 o'clock or later, right? So he loves that Friday late afternoon news dump. So I thought he was going to do that again, right? And lo and behold, we didn't hear from him. And then Saturday comes around, he tweets out that he's going to continue the practice process and actually use the terminology that you hear in other sports, especially with football, game time decision. Mm-hmm. So he's very much still a game time decision as far as whether he will compete at this week's Masters. But you know what? It's funny. By the time your listeners are tuning into this podcast, we may already have our answer. Here's why. Tomorrow, Tiger Woods will speak to the media at 11 o'clock Eastern time, and that is when I would assume he's going to announce that he will compete in the first major championship of this PGA Tour season. And I think we're all headed in that direction. He's been practicing here at Augusta for a while now. Freddie Couples had the quote of the day today. He played with Tiger Woods in a practice round with Justin Thomas, saying, quote, "If he can walk, he can contend." Not even just play, contend at the Masters. So overall, his walking has looked pretty darn good. His swing has been great. His ball speed is in the 170s, which is above PGA Tour average. The short game looks exceptional right now. I don't think his swing looks bad at all. I think it looks pretty smooth, pretty fluid. So the only reports that I am hearing that are negative per se is that he's missing the ball left. He's pulling it when he misses. And that actually is not all that bad, because Augusta typically calls for a right-handed draw and a left-handed cut. And so if you're pulling the ball a little bit, that's okay. That is the preferred miss at Augusta National. But at the other end of it, too, it's Tiger Woods. This is a guy who has shown up to Augusta National with long layoffs before and played pretty darn well. T17 back in 2015, T4 back in 2010. 2010, of course, was not injury-related. It was related to his PR nightmare that he had with Elin and the Thanksgiving car crash and what have you. But still, long layoff from the PGA Tour, shows up and plays pretty darn well at Augusta National. And so I would say, as far as expectations are concerned, I'm going to be realistic in my head and say that he'll make the cut and finish something like T33, something along those lines. But let me just say here that he is playing the Masters, and again, I'm predicting that, to win. He doesn't play a PGA Tour event to make the cut or finish top 20. There are golfers out there, some that admit it to the media, i.e. a Kevin Kisner, that says, yeah, sometimes top 20 is a good week for me. I can get my paycheck and move on to the next tournament. That's not the case with Tiger Woods. Obviously, he puts a tee into the ground every single time he plays to win that given event. And let me tell you again, he is not here to just smack it around and have a few laughs with the guys at Augusta National. He's out here trying to compete for a victory. So my expectations are not as high as his expectations, but that's very normal because to be an elite athlete like Tiger Woods, you have to have self-belief. And so, again, I think he's going to play, should hear very soon, if not already, and he's going to give it a go for a 6th green jacket.
Very cool. Well, let's shift gears to somebody else who a year ago we wouldn't even be talking about because nobody, frankly, had a freaking clue in the world who he is. But lo and behold, 2022 rolls around and this guy comes out of nowhere. And if memory serves, he is currently ranked as the top player in the world. That's Scottie Scheffler. What can fans expect from this guy heading into the Masters? Is he going to ride that wave high, or is he going to kind of fade into the backdrop as a lot of first-timers do?
Yeah, Scottie Scheffler is just a fantastic talent, and I had been harping on his skill sets for quite some time. Really good overall resume at the major championships, so that's something that you certainly have to track here with Scottie Scheffler, and that really just shows me he has the balanced game. From driver to putter, nothing necessarily elite, but everything is really, really good. And that has allowed him to ascend to number 1 in the official World Golf Rankings. 3 wins so far this PGA Tour season, which is ridiculous. I mean, coming out of nowhere, as you said, with a few trophies on the mantle is pretty darn good. And so he's coming into Augusta with a lot of momentum right now. But here's what I will caution. Golf is a random and volatile game. And you can finish top 10 in 3 straight events. You guys know this, and then miss the cut the next week. And that's just a testament, not necessarily to a player playing poorly, but more so the depth of talent on the PGA Tour, how anybody can win any given week because these guys are absolutely automatic, and the margins for error, if you will, are extremely thin. So for Scottie Scheffler, I think he is probably the happiest guys that Tiger Woods is actually getting all the chatter this week, because if it weren't for Tiger, it would actually be Scottie Scheffler as one of the top storylines this week, ascending to number 1 in the official World Golf Rankings. He's not inside my top 10 this week. It's not an indictment on him. I just like a lot of other guys better.
Well, let me ask you this, Sid, and let's stay on this topic of kind of the up-and-comers and the new guys. It's been quite a long time, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know that we've had a first-time winner at the Masters. You can correct me on that, but it's been a long time if it has happened. But we do seem to have a few that seem to hang up close to the top every year. Could this finally be the year that maybe you get a first-timer to break through and win the green jacket? Looking at somebody like maybe a Sam Burns or the aforementioned Scottie Scheffler, could that happen this year?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly won't talk me down from Sam Burns here this week. Truly a remarkable talent, and has racked up quite a good amount of wins here in his young PGA Tour season. Yeah, you're right. It has been a while. 1979, the last time a debutante won the Masters. Fuzzy Zeller got it done. But hey, you know what? The last couple of times, we were close. Last year with Will Zalatoris, he was runner-up. The tournament before that, it was the November Masters, if you will, because of the COVID layoff. Sungjae Im was runner-up as well. He was a first-timer at the Masters. So we certainly could have that, especially in this new PGA Tour era where we have so much deep talent on the PGA Tour that I would not be shocked for somebody like a Sam Burns to get it done here this week. Again, not inside my top 10 in terms of the power rankings, because I do put a lot of stock in Masters course history when I am handicapping and predicting this event. But hey, if he's putting on the green jacket, Sam Burns, on Sunday evening, I would not be surprised.
There you go. Kev, I'm going to throw it to you for a second, man. You're one of the guys that I know who really follows the tour. You are not just a fan of one particular player or another. You follow the game and you follow the tour. Are any of these new guys kind of catching your eye? Anybody that maybe you're looking for to maybe step out this weekend and show up?
Well, I think Cam just mentioned Will Zalatoris. His play last year was amazing. Augusta National is a ball striker's course, and you have to be able to maneuver around the course and be able to hit the crisp shots when you need to. And he was very impressive last year. I know he's kind of had a little bit of a roller coaster over the season so far, but I think this is going to be one of those environments where when you're playing golf, sometimes you have a course that fits your eye pretty well, and it's just somewhere that you go back to and you typically play pretty well. And I think that's going to be something that we're going to see from Zalatoris this year. I think that Sam Burns, Scottie Scheffler, both of those guys, I think could win. I think there's going to be a huge amount of folks that are going to be in contention probably going into Saturday afternoon. I think it's just the way this Masters is setting up. And again, because of the huge amount of parity and the level of talent, I think it's anybody's game really until we get to Sunday. And that makes the Masters what it is, because nothing is more exciting than that back nine on Sunday.
Sweet. Well, let's shift gears kind of to more of the name brand, the household names that people know. And we will start with the guy who won this tournament last year, and that would be Hideki Matsuyama. This was the first Japanese male to ever win a major, earned him a lot of fanfare. Fantastic player. That said, it's been a long time since anybody's won back-to-back at the Masters, dating all the way back to Tiger in 01 and 02. Cam, I'll come back to you, man. Hideki Matsuyama, is he the guy that could conceivably put together a back-to-back run, or what are your thoughts on him heading into this weekend?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm pretty darn concerned about Hideki Matsuyama this week. He's been dealing with a few injuries right now. He actually pulled out of the Valero Texas Open a week ago, citing a neck injury. He did not, I believe, play the WGC match play, or at least he withdrew from that. So he's been battling some injury demons right now. Yes, he has 3 wins in the past year. And, you know, if there's anybody who can defend a given title, it certainly can be Hideki Matsuyama with his ball striking. And maybe he is feeling better now. But I think as far as predicting this event, even if you are just 85 to 90%, that's enough for you to struggle that given week amid really good talent here who's playing well and who are all very healthy, like Xander Schauffele, Victor Hovland, Brooks Koepka, Rory McIlroy, JT, of course, as well, Dustin Johnson, too. So I don't think it's going to happen this year in terms of a repeat winner. I think Hideki Matsuyama will certainly be a factor in the major championships this year. Probably not this one in particular, though, guys. I'm a little bit concerned about his injuries.
That's fair enough. Well, you mentioned Rory there for a second. This is a guy who's won pretty much everything under the sun. Historically performs very well at Augusta National. We're looking at 6 top 10 finishes in the last 7 events. But he's never been able to close the deal. He heads into this year once more looking to try and get that elusive career Grand Slam. Is this the year that maybe Rory can put it over the top for a green jacket, Cam?
Certainly can be the year. Rory McIlroy is a guy that I am certainly tracking here this week, has the balanced game right now, top 10 in this field in strokes gained around the green, which is certainly critical at Augusta National. He's number 3 in driving distance, which is actually the biggest corollary stat to winning at Augusta National is driving distance. But here's the thing. There's that mental pressure side that we can sometimes not really quantify, if ever. He would become only the 6th player to complete the Grand Slam, the career Grand Slam at this Masters tournament here. And he'd be joining the likes of Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, and Tiger Woods. That's a lot of pressure when you're talking about those names in the game. And the other thing, too, with Rory is that he's gone through these episodes of really sluggish starts, not even at the Masters, but just at PGA Tour events in general, and then he finds fire on Saturday and Sunday, and then you get a backdoor T7 from Rory McIlroy, and you check the leaderboard on Sunday evening, and you're like, oh, wait, Rory McIlroy finished inside the top 10. He barely was on TV because he was never really in contention because he struggled on Thursday and Friday. So I think that is the one concern with him. And then the other thing, too, guys, the iron game has not been crisp right now, and approach play is uber critical here at Augusta National, as you guys talked about, ball striker's course, ball striker's paradise. But again, Rory McIlroy is an immense talent, and he's certainly on the top 10 list for me this week. I'm splitting hairs a little bit with his struggles, but certainly keep in mind a lot of pressure on him to complete that career Grand Slam.
What's your take on Collin Morikawa heading into this event? This is a guy who's looking to become the first guy since Jordan Spieth in 2015 to win back-to-back majors, won the Open Championship. What can we expect to see out of him come Sunday?
Yeah, Collin Morikawa, obviously one of the elite ball strikers on the PGA Tour and has shown immense success in the major championships in his young career. Here's the thing, though. Lead-in form is so critical at the Masters. You need to be on top of your approach game, your ball striking game, leading into this very tournament. And bizarrely, he's not playing all that great with his irons, relatively speaking to what we're used to from Collin Morikawa. He has not played a lot on the PGA Tour so far this season. And here's the thing. When you're predicting a major championship, you sort of have to take a stand on these guys. And you're splitting hairs, and you have to basically say these guys are going to play well, these guys are not going to finish inside the top 10, because the top 10 players in the world are not going to finish inside the top 10 here this week at the Masters. So for Collin Morikawa, he's one guy that I'm probably not going to look to as a contender here this week. I would like to see some improvements with his approach play, with his ball striking overall.
All righty. Well, last guy I want to ask you about, Cam, in terms of specifics here, and this is really more of a selfish thing on my part. I am coming to you tonight from Panama City, Florida, which is right down the road from Tallahassee, Florida, home of Florida State University, where the great Brooks Koepka graduated from in another place, another time. Is a guy that owned the golf world a number of years back, has since cooled a little bit, but can turn it on at any time in any place. What can Knowles fans like myself expect from Brooks heading into the Masters circa 2022?
Yeah, go Knowles, go Knowles. Let's talk about Brooks Koepka here. I mean, when we're talking about a major, guys, you have to talk about Brooks Koepka. Most strokes gained total in this field in major championships since 2008. Here are his rankings in majors since 2016. Scored a par, first. Birdies are better, first. Scoring average, first. Strokes gained total, as I talked about, first. And of course, victories, number one as well. And he's trending low-key pretty good. Third in Phoenix, 16th at the Honda Classic on the Florida Swing, 12th at the Valspar Championship. And here's the other thing, too. 9 of the last 10 Masters champions had at least 2 top 15 finishes in their previous 3 starts. Brooks Koepka is one of them. Gaining strokes off the tee as well. You certainly need that at Augusta National. So Brooks Koepka is certainly on my short list. He's on my power rankings inside my top 10 as a guy who can win on Sunday. There's no doubt.
Kevin, I'm going to turn back to you for a second, man. We've covered a lot of names here, from McIlroy all the way down to Brooksy. Any of these guys are kind of got your eye heading into the weekend?
I got to say I'm with Cam on pretty much all of them. I think Rory's got a chance. He's got to get out of the gate. He has to have good opening rounds on Thursday, Friday, and then he has to put ultimately what happened to him in 2011, go into the back 9 and just completely falling apart. He's got to put that behind him and try to capture that first Masters. I'm with Cam on Hideki. I think Hideki's been a little bit streaky of late, and then with the injury concerns of the last couple of weeks, I'm completely on board with Cam. I don't think he's going to be in contention. Morikawa, same kind of thing. He's not seemed like himself of late, and I don't know that he's going to be one of the guys that we're going to be following later on. I know you're a Brooks guy, and I won't belabor that point. Brooks, I think Brooks could be there too. I think one of the guys that I'm looking at this particular weekend is probably Tony Finau. Finau, he's one of those guys that seems very comfortable on Augusta National, and I think that's going to be one of the tournaments he's going to win one day. Whether that's this year or not, I couldn't say, but I think he's going to be around and in contention. It just seems to be one of those places where he plays pretty well.
Awesome. Cam, I'm going to turn back to you for a second. And you are, in addition to being a golf pro, you're also a sports gambling guy. So let's put those two things together real quick. Give me a couple of picks that are your locks, if you will, for this weekend. And then give me a dark horse that fans ought to keep an eye out that maybe we haven't mentioned so far in the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I'm picking Daniel Berger to win the Masters this week. You can get a pretty good number on him at this tournament, 50-1, 60-1, depending on where you're looking out there. I'm on JT, Justin Thomas, for a top 10 finish. Made the switch to Bones, of course, Phil's former caddy. And so Justin Thomas has some serious Augusta National knowledge, if you will, on the bag. I think that's huge. But of course, Justin's play is fantastic as well. 6 top 8 finishes since November, 5 consecutive top 25 finishes at the Masters, top 10 in driving distance and par 5 scoring. So Justin Thomas for a top 10, I think is a pretty darn safe bet. I would go with Brooks Koepka on that safe bet as well for a top 10 finish. And how about this? Maybe a miscut prop this week, guys. Bryson DeChambeau. I've got a lot of concerns about him here this week. He talked to the media today. He's not even 100%. Overall, he's a big-time fade for me. He missed the cut last week at the Valero Texas Open. He's been dealing with a bone bruise in his hand right now, in his wrist area. Really bad resume at Augusta National. I think he's still figuring out this tournament. So I think a missed cut prop is probably worth a pretty solid play there for Bryson DeChambeau. If you want to go down the board and find a nice little dark horse, Matt Fitzpatrick. This is a guy who is going to win pretty darn soon on the PGA Tour. Improved iron game is the story with me. 19th on tour, typically not known as an approach guy, but 19th on tour. That's a big time improvement for him. Number 1 in strokes gained total this season. 4 top 10s and 5 PGA Tour starts this year. So I know the Masters record leaves a bit to be desired, but he has enough experience here to sort of pop on the leaderboard here this week. So Matt Fitzpatrick, a nice dark horse for a top 20, top 10 play.
Awesome. Well, this is really kind of the last question I had for you, and I saved it to the end just because it doesn't pertain to the Masters, but it does pertain to the game of golf. You mentioned Phil Mickelson just a second ago, obviously in the news for some stuff that we're not going to get into here, but we will get to the nature of that, and that is this whole idea of a brand new tour that is about to start. It's a Saudi-backed group led by Greg Norman called the LIV Golf Invitational Series. This week it was announced that they're going to launch in June with a $255 million purse to be spread over 8 events. That is big time cash. What could this potentially do to the game of golf as a whole, the launch of this series if it takes off? And are there any names that we're looking at on the current PGA leaderboard that could decide, you know what, I think I can make a go of it over there. I know I'm going to pay the price here on the tour, but I think it's worth it. I'm going to go. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not too worried about this tour really putting a dent into the PGA Tour, if you will. Obviously, I talked about how deep the PGA Tour is right now, talent-wise and what have you. But overall, I just don't think that anybody is going to leave for this extremely controversial golf league. And there were names being thrown around there: Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, Justin Thomas. All these guys were thrown around to a degree. And a lot of them have come out publicly to say that they are not going to be involved with this. And so who's actually going to play in this? I mean, there are going to be names that a lot of people have never heard of. Jason Kokrak, Lee Westwood, like these guys might go, but like, what is that really going to do? I mean, it's not going to affect the PGA Tour, and it certainly will mean that Lee Westwood and whoever else joins will not be allowed on the PGA Tour. Maybe Phil Mickelson is that guy. Reportedly, he is completely silent right now. Bryson DeChambeau said today he tried reaching out to Phil Mickelson, hasn't heard back, and this was weeks ago. So maybe Phil is working the wires, if you will, talking to Greg Norman, who's the leader of all of this. Hey, I'm in. Like, I don't know. But I will say that I am not too concerned about it actually affecting the game of golf. I think it'll be interesting to see how it does. Is this an XFL situation that falls flat on its face? I don't know.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it might be. And because, again, who is that prominent name that's going to drive this tour? And I would argue that outside of Tiger Woods on the PGA Tour, we don't have that one name there, right? It's a team effort to carry that tour. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, guys, if this even lasts, what the logistics are. There are a lot of details that we don't know. I know it's starting in June, so, things sort of have to come together here. But at the foundation of it all, you have to have the big names, and I just don't know that the big names will carry over to this league.
Fair enough. Kev, before I let Cam kind of give his spiel on websites and social media and so forth, are there any questions here that I missed? Anything you want to put to our guy here?
Well, I think you covered all the questions that we had talked about beforehand. So, Cam, I'm just curious from your perspective on some of the up and comings that we haven't really talked about. Folks like maybe a Seamus Power. Is there anybody else out there that you're tracking for the top 10, maybe top 20 that might be surprising?
Yeah, maybe not necessarily surprising, but a guy who has longer odds, Corey Connors. has a couple of top 10s in each of his last 2 Masters tournaments, 11th in strokes gained tee to green over the last 20 rounds, just hits a million fairways, great iron player. He's a guy I'm really tracking here this week. Somebody that maybe we started to talk about for a while and then stopped is Shane Lowry. I mean, from a ball striking perspective, he's been absolutely fantastic here in 2022. I know he doesn't have any top 20 finishes here over the last 5 years, but 2 top 25, so it's a little bit misleading. He does have some decent finishes here the last couple of years. 7th in approach play over his last 24 rounds. So Shane Lowry is a guy to certainly look at. And let me just quickly say, guys, to probably stare away from: Sergio, Patrick Reed, Webb Simpson, Justin Rose. These are guys who have great Masters records, but the recent form just isn't there for me. So I'm going to be off those guys this week. But yeah, Corey Connors, Shane Lowry, those are some names that I'm looking at.
Awesome.
Let me throw out one more question, Ian, if I can.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Cam, given the history of the Masters and Bobby Jones as far as being an amateur golfer, any of the amateurs you're looking at as far as making the cut, or maybe who might be low amateur?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny when you talk about the Masters here, right, guys? We have past champions, we have amateurs, and typically I just write them off as they're probably not going to make the cut or what have you, and it's really hard for me to say necessarily who is going to be that low amateur here this week. I'll be frank with you guys, because I think this field is probably one of the best it's ever been in terms of the Masters. And when you have the likes of Scottie Scheffler coming into the fray and Victor Hovland and Tiger Woods and what have you, who apparently is playing really well right now, I don't know if there's going to be any amateur that's going to really pop on the leaderboard here this week. But I'll have to do some more digging, a little more research on that, to be frank with you, because obviously these guys are playing here for a reason. So
awesome. Rob, how about you, man? I'm going to pull you out of mothballs. You got any questions for Cam before we let him go?
Yeah, I do. Last year, Matsuyama won with 11 under par, but of course, 2 years ago, Dustin Johnson won with 20 under par. And I'm always kind of curious about the course and the technical details of how they lay out a course and how they tweak it to try and get the kind of scores they prefer. And obviously the 20 under is not what they wanted. But how do you think they're going to set up this course? And what kind of score do you think they're hoping for?
Yeah, let me first tell you that 2020 November Masters, that 20 under par number, we're never getting that again. That was a very special kind of week because we had some rain. The fall, of course, lends itself to have damper conditions. So scoring conditions were ripe, obviously, for these guys, really receptive greens. So we will never see that again. I don't think the goal for Augusta National here this week would probably be around 9, 8, maybe 10 under par. Some interesting notes about the golf course this week. It's playing the longest it has ever played, 7,500 yards this week on the scorecard. They extended a few holes, so that's why we get that number. 9 of the 10 par 4s play over 440 yards. So your long irons better be good, and you better take advantage of those par 5s. Those par 5s are gettable, but the par 4s are extremely difficult because of the yardage on the scorecard here this week. The rough isn't really all that penal, so you can spray it a little bit, relative term, of course. But I think Augusta National and the leadership there will be looking at something along the lines of an 8 under, 9 under, 10 under score. We will certainly not see 20 under par here this week, although, stay tuned, there is some rain in the forecast. You never know.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Cam Rogers, host of the Lock It In Sports Betting Show on the Bleav Podcast Network, dropping some massive knowledge on us heading into Masters weekend. So we appreciate that. Cam, anything else you want folks to know, places that you want them to come find you on social media, web stuff, other show stuff? It's your chance to shine, man. Anything else you want our listeners to know about you so they can come find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. Appreciate it. You can check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99, at Mr. Rogers98 on Instagram. I will be going live throughout the country here this week doing other media interviews, so certainly track me there. I'll be doing my Lock It In podcast actually on Sports Map Radio live tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern time, actually to be tonight when you're listening to this. It's a Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Tune into that, and plenty more content on the pod throughout the week as well. So certainly check it out, and appreciate you guys carving out some time.
Pleasure was all ours, man. Thanks for coming on to the show, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
You guys got it. Take care.
And that's going to take us down to our halftime segment, which is where we show a little love to our presenting sponsor. That would, of course, be the fine folks over at Chris Kennedy Publishing. We say it at the top. We say it because it's true, y'all. Chris Kennedy Publishing, man. It doesn't matter what you're into. Military, sci-fi, space opera, stuff about the craft. They have got you covered across the board. To learn more about them, their series, their books, and maybe even get yourself a free ebook, go to chriskennedypublishing.com, sign up for the mailing list, and learn all about it. Speaking of CKP, new releases abound. And this week, we've got a brand new book from the Abner Fortis ISMC series from PAPI. Rob, what can you tell me about this book?
Peace in our time. After human and Multani forces cooperated to rescue the hostages being held by slavers on the icy planet of Menard Kev, leaders on both sides agreed that peace between the races was desirable. A treaty was signed, and embassies were established. Unrest between the Multani royalists, who rule their home planet, and their nationalist subjects, already at a low boil, intensifies with the establishment of the Terran Embassy in the Multani capital city of Darbin, and, when a report is released stating that humans and Multani are of the same genetic stock, things are pushed to the breaking point. In the midst of this unrest, the Galactic Resource Conglomerate is operating in the shadows, completing deals that are sure to only push things forward toward catastrophe. With the security situation in the capital worsening, First Lieutenant Abner Fortis, now the executive officer of Lima Company, is ordered to establish a forward operating base at the spaceport near Darbin and stand by to assist the embassy in whatever way they need. But, with things already falling apart, will Lima Company's presence help keep the peace, or will they cause an international incident that finally pushes everything over the edge?
Awesome. Well, we got new stuff in audio this week in the form of The Long and the Short of It. That is a collection of novellas from the likes of Kevin Steverson, Nick Steverson, Briscoe Woods, and a number of other folks. That is, of course, set in the Salvage Title universe. So you can go out and check that out. That's available now on Audible, iBooks, and pretty much all those places. And then in other news, launch team readers are needed for not one, but two new releases at CKP. The first one is a book called Among the Embers, which is an anthology from the Fallen World universe, edited by Chris Kennedy and Christopher Woods. And then finally, a lot of folks looking forward to this one too. I heard a lot of chatter about it. The brand new book coming out from Nick Steverson, set in the Salvage Title universe, called Consequences. This is going to close down his trilogy, and a lot of folks looking forward to that one. As always, if you're interested in getting on board for those launch teams, go to chriskennedypublishing.com, hit the Contact Us page, shoot them a form, let them know that you're interested, and they will take grandiose care of you because, well, that's what they do over there at Chris Kennedy Publishing. One more time, it's chriskennedypublishing.com.
You got mail.
Time now for our listener mail segment known as Pod Mail. This one is presented to you by the International Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy Authors, or IASFA. Great folks over there, guys. Doesn't matter if you're a reader or an author, IASFA has something for you. Go to their website at iasfa.org. Make sure you sign up for an account. It is free, and get busy. If you're an author, these guys are an amazing community to be a part of. They're going to give you knowledge on your craft, help you get better as a writer, help you advance as a business person. All right. We all need to market our books. We've all got to be on top of that stuff. Whole bunch of your peers just waiting in this community to come be a part of that for you, help you down that journey. So go there, set it up. Again, it's a free account. So you got nothing to lose, nothing to invest. And that's iasfa.org. If you're a reader, holy cow, man, we got promotions going abounding. All right. We got a space opera, the space opera bundle that just dropped in December. We had a fantasy that just went live this month. I think there's another one happening later on this month in science fiction. I mean, everything from free book bundles to bundles with, 20 books for $7. I I mean, come on, man. At a time when we're all pinching pennies at the grocery store and at the gas pump, how can you go wrong with 20 novels for $7? Again, that's with the International Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy Authors. You can learn more about them at iasfa.org. All right, first question, fellas, comes to us from Scott. I honestly can't remember the last time that a game as heavily hyped as UNC versus Duke lived up to the billing, and yet this one did. Absolutely amazing game and happy to see it. Now the question becomes, what are the odds that Coach K does an about face like Tom Brady and comes out of retirement to do one more season? Rob, you're pretty close on the college football beat, man. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think Coach K will stick to his guns and retire? I mean, that's a sour way to go out if he does.
It is a sour way to go out. That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, obviously no one does, but I will say this. Dude has poured his heart and soul into the game of basketball all his life. And he's going to go into the offseason, or he's into the offseason now, and there's going to be this huge void in his life. Now, is he going to be able to fill that with the family? Is what's going to happen, in his personal life? How's he going to fill it that way? But he's going to have to fill it some way, because everything I know about Coach K is he's a go, work till 4 a.m., get up at 6 a.m. and start the process kind of guy. Unless he can fill that void, I think there's a great chance he comes back. But if he can fill that void, then maybe the time has come for him to take a breath, and because he's, all these years and never really taking a break. That's impressive.
Sure, no doubt. Kevin, you much of a college hoops guy? You got any thoughts on Coach K and all of this? It's big news.
Yeah, I actually am, Ian, and I really doubt that he comes back. I say that for a couple of reasons. One, he's been in the job for over 40 years at Duke, plus his time at Army before that. So I think he's certainly earned his rest. But I think the thing that is telling is that he started the year from a recruiting aspect telling potential recruits coming to Duke that he was not going to be there, that he was very committed to his plan to retire at the end of this season. So I think it's a done deal. I think he will go ahead and retire. I think he'll find his way back to the game of basketball. I'm sure that one of the networks will pick him up to be a commentator, and rightly so, because he is a legend, truly. But I do think that I don't think he's going to come back. I think he is very comfortable where things ended up. I mean, his commentary at the end of the game, basically, hugging his wife and telling her it was okay, and then never breaking down emotionally. He's been ready for this.
Sure. And
I think that I don't think he's going to come back. I think this is truly, while it wasn't the way that he wanted to go out, I think that he is very much at peace with the decision. And things can happen, and he could be back next year, and I could look stupid for saying so, but I really think he's done. I think he's just decided that now is the time, and he wouldn't have gone the route that he did with announcing it and playing to it the entire year if he wasn't serious about it.
Yeah, no, that is a fair point. I don't know that you could say much more about Coach K other than he is a man that lets his yeses be yes and his no's be no. There's not a whole lot of gray there with that guy. He tells you what he thinks, and that was very much on display, honestly, after the game or leading up to the game on Saturday, when people were asking him for his thoughts on the current state of the NCAA and how things are being run. And folks, we've talked about that a lot on this program, usually within the context of college football, but just how much things are changing with name, image, and likeness, with the transfer portal. It does not get any more legendary than Mike Krzyzewski in college basketball. And he had some great thoughts on all of that. So feel free to go Google that, find it, and read that interview, because there was some good stuff there. Next, before I move off of college basketball, rumor has it there was a little wager placed, Rob, on KU UNC at Fantasy, if that game was going to come to pass, you and a certain publisher.
There is a little wager, Chris Kennedy, he's a nice man. He's a great boss. He's a fantastic writer and publisher.
UNC alum.
But he is a UNC alum, the poor guy. And so as a guy who did not graduate from KU, I spent more time playing basketball at KU on the pickup courts and going to every game and yelling my voice hoarse. That I might be a KU fan for life. And so we placed a wager. The wager is that we'll buy each other, the loser buys the other a beer. But to spice it up, he and I have vastly different tastes in what makes a good beer. Vastly different tastes. And so the loser has to also drink the same beers, whatever the winner orders. So since, of course, you guys know the result as you're listening to this, you can imagine either Chris or I choking down whatever the other one likes. Going to be fun pictures.
You're not going to want to make that bet with me come college football season. I'll have you drinking some Busch Light Apple, son. All right. Next question.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's the gauntlet I'm not willing to pick up.
Next question comes to us from Lauren. Hey, fellas and Ike. Great seeing you all at Fantaside this past weekend. During the CKP panel, it was mentioned that Kevin mentioned that we're finally going to get the end of his Protocol Wars trilogy. That is awesome news, as I love those books. What is the timeline for release on that, and what can readers expect from the story? Any clues? Ike, that's all you, man.
So just ironically, just a couple of days ago, I finished the final edit pass of the story. And it was really the first time I'd sat down and read the book since I finished it about, I was going to say probably close to a year ago, maybe 9 months or so ago. And I was very struck by the story. I think it does the entire trilogy a lot of due justice that's been inordinately delayed. And there's, I don't want to get into the reasons behind all of that stuff. It was a business decision. And, I'm looking right now at cover art. I'm working with the original cover artist for the Sleeper and Vendetta Protocol books to update that art and then be able to produce the art for the third book, which is called Eminence Protocol. There is no timetable for release yet, but because the first two books are already done and ready to be formatted with a new cover, as soon as book 3 is ready to rock and roll, we'll probably go ahead and do some type of a rapid release for those and probably try to time that around the August timeframe to capitalize on folks that may be seeing my name in a bookstore for the very first time with the release of The Crossing and go on Amazon and be able to pull up multiple first books, if you will, into my universes.
Awesome. Yeah, I was a big fan of the Protocol War stuff. I read those on Audible, and really, really, really well done, man. So I'm on the list of people who's looking forward to Eminence when that finally drops. So put me down for that one. Next question comes to us from Robert. Historically, I've always been a charcoal guy when it comes to grilling. What can I say? I'm old school that way. That said, I have many friends singing the praises of the Traeger and Pit Boss grills that work with the wood pellets. Any thoughts on that? Also, what do you guys prefer in the way of grilling method? I have not had a chance to try out either one of those, the wood pellet stuff. I do hear great things about them. I hear they make a great cut of meat and they're super, super user friendly. So if you just kind of want to set it and forget it, so to speak, apparently these are really conducive to that. And their temperatures are very even, Steven, very reliable. So you don't fry stuff, which I'm prone to do sometimes. So yeah, I mean, the only experience I have with them is hearsay, but everything I've heard is fantastic, such that I actually would kind of like to get one of those to play with it. As far as my preferred technique or preferred space for grilling, I'm a propane guy. I have tinkered with charcoal, but my dad raised me on propane. It's so simple. It's so convenient. If I come home from work and I need to just, hey, wife needs me to grill some chicken breast for dinner. Boom, you go out, you fire it off, you grill them 40 minutes later, 30 minutes later, they're on a plate and they're ready to rock and roll. So I'm a propane guy. Kevin, how about you, man? You got any grilling preferences, any knowledge you want to drop on the folks? And have you played around with one of these new wood pellet grills?
So truth be stranger than fiction, I actually cooked in a barbecue restaurant while I was in college. Oh. So I do quite a lot of this stuff. I have a Traeger, and I'm very, very happy with it. It does very well. I like the opportunity to change the pellets to whatever flavor profile I'm trying to go for with whatever cut of meat that is. It's really simple to trade it out and have the other pellets loaded in. When I am traditionally just grilling like a quick meal, I have a propane grill. I did pork chops tonight for the family. And it's, again, like you said, it's very simple. It's very easy. I love cooking over a wood fire, though. From all my years in scouting, and I think I probably camped about 2 years total of my life. So being able to cook over a wood fire is always something I've loved to do. But I got to tell you, from a standpoint of delivering consistently the kind of meal you want to have, the Traeger, those wood pellet systems, they're really phenomenal. I've been incredibly impressed by it. I've only had the Traeger now since around the Christmas time frame. It was a gift, and I think we've probably done 6 or 7 meals, and they've all been stellar.
Awesome. Well, all right. Now, I'm not going to let you off the hook without talking to me about your pork chops. What was your process? Did you marinate? Did you season? What'd you do?
Actually, tonight was just a very simple one. I tend to do very simple recipes with the kids, especially because they're still learning different spices and different levels of stuff. So basically, I used a seasoning mixture that is kind of similar to like a Montreal kind of seasoning. Yeah, just some salt, pepper, garlic salt, whatever. Very lightly done, and just grill it just straight like that. So season it, rub it in for probably 15, 20 minutes prior to grilling, and then throw them on the grill about 6 minutes on the side.
Awesome. Yeah, sometimes simple is really the way to go, is it not? Rob, how about you, man? You play around with the wood pellet grills, or you do much grilling?
I do a ton of grilling, and the propane is too convenient for me not to use. From about a month ago through the rest of the year up until December, I mean, like, there are very few months that I don't grill out once or twice a week, if not more. We both love meat, and I like to grill, and it's very smooth and easy for me. And so propane, where the convenience of, again, like you talked about, turn it on, get it to the temperature I want it to be, lay out the food, and go. That works really conveniently for me. I've heard great things about the Traeger stuff too. I am likely to move to that. And I may keep a secondary propane grill for some fast stuff. But I'm certainly wanting to go to the wood pellet one. The propane is so much more convenient than the charcoal, but it's a little bit tricky if I want to add hickory flavor, which you can do. Or if I want to add, another wood flavor, I can do it. But it's not as smooth and easy as, for example, charcoal. So preference would be to have the flavor of the wood pellets if I can get that kind of convenience. And again, what I've heard of the Traeger is that you do have that kind of convenience. I actually seem to recall there's at least one model. I could be wrong on this. I did some research on this a while ago, and I haven't followed up recently. It seems to me there might even be a Traeger model that actually can use propane if you choose to use it just for the speed. But overall, if I'm cooking something for a long time, I want to be able to control that temperature. Propane has better control than charcoal. It sounds like from everything I've read, wood pellets have better control than propane.
Awesome.
So like I say, that's probably where I'm going to end up.
Awesome. All right,
I'll throw one more thing at you with the Traeger too.
Yeah.
The Traeger, with the ability to set the temperature, I can actually grill on the Traeger. So set the temperature at like 350 degrees and do chicken breasts in 25, 30 minutes. So
awesome.
Nice.
It's not quite like the full, you have to have the afternoon smoking thing. If I want to do a quick recipe, I certainly can. It's pretty cool.
Sweet.
Yeah, I saw that on some of the Traeger stuff. They look very exciting, and it's one of the things that's on my list to get this summer. It's just, there's some things in my life that might be changing. So it's juggling when the right time to pull that trigger, but it's on the way.
All right. Next question comes to us from Sheldon. You guys are artists, but you are also fans. With that established, what would you have done if you had been committed to a major event only to find out that your favorite team is squaring off against a rival in the Final Four? Would you have stuck with the commitment, or would you have canceled the show as Eric Church did and gone to the sporting event? Kevin, you're a pretty big name these days, man. You get to go do some fairly big stuff. What say you, man? I mean, if you're going to be guest of honor and you find out, somewhere and your favorite team is going to play for a natty against a rival, no less, how do you handle that? I mean, does the fandom in you win out, or do you stand by the readers?
I think for what I tend to do, and with the crowd that I'm with, I would stand by the readers. Now, understanding where Eric Church was with his decision, I am not a huge North Carolina nor Duke fan, but the sheer enormity of the two of them finally meeting in the NCAA tournament in the Final Four in Coach K's last season and potential last game, that's a pretty big one not to miss, yeah. I would have to say. And so if you're a huge dedicated fan and it's not out of your norm to do that, then I can certainly see that. But otherwise, from a professional standpoint, you have a commitment, you honor the commitment as much as you can.
Gotcha. Rob, how about you, man? Let's say you're going to be a guest of honor at some major con somewhere, and then the Cowboys go to the Super Bowl. What you going to do?
Well, I'll give you my answer
Buy
here.
a lottery ticket.
Yeah, there's that. There's 8 minutes and 36 seconds left, 46 seconds left, according to ESPN, in the first half of the basketball game. And I am recording this podcast, and it's nothing like the kind of commitment you have to go to conventions. If there was, like, say, for example, I got invited to a convention and it happened on Super Bowl weekend and it meant I couldn't see the game, it would be the fact that a convention thought enough to invite me as, let's say, guest of honor or something like that would be so much more important in some ways. And understand, I've been a Cowboys fan since 1972. This will be my 50th season as a Cowboys fan coming up. And it is my team. There is no other sports. I will watch Cowboy reruns over a lot of sports. And yes, I'm a KU fan. And yes, I have a number of other teams I follow. But this is a job, and sometimes the job gets in the way of your hobbies.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw in with Eichenberry on this, man. I'm an Eric Church guy, so full disclosure, I really like his stuff. He's one of my favorite guys in Nashville right now. I think his stuff's really unique. Good Lord, man. It's UNC versus Duke in the Final Four in Coach K's last game, after UNC went into Cameron and beat him in his last game in Cameron. I mean, I told my wife, I'm like, I have no dog in this fight, and I am absolutely riveted to know how this is going to play out. Like, I've got to see this for myself. So, take that and put yourself in the shoes of somebody like him who grew up in Granite Falls, North Carolina, outside of Hickory, was born, bred, and raised Tar Heel Blue, went to App State. I mean, if I had the ability to just make a call and be like, yo, I'm going to need you to get me courtside for my family, kind of not so sure I wouldn't have done that. But he did the right thing. He's rescheduled the San Antonio show, and he's apparently doing another show that's somewhere in that vicinity. And he put the word out that if you can show up at that concert and show your ticket, they'll let you in for free at that one. So you're going to get 2 shows for the price of 1. So he made it right.
I do want to add that I make no judgments about Eric Church or anybody else who has a different opinion here. This is literally just my opinion, like the introduction says, and I don't have any criticism for other people. I didn't mean that to sound like, oh, how dare he gets to make his choices, and if he's, especially since he's going to do everything he can to make it up and make it up to those fans. He made a choice I don't think I would have, but then again, I'm not in his shoes, and it's hard for me to judge everything from a distance.
Well, that's like your opinion, man. Like I said, that's why we do this. It would be a very boring show if we all had the same opinion on the issue.
I agree.
All right, last question comes to us from Allison the Slap. What say you, gentlemen? I don't care at all. Like, not even a little, about this. I know it was all over the internet last week. Everybody was talking about it. The memes were awesome. And that is probably the best thing to come from it. Outside of that, I don't care if it was staged. I don't care if it was real. I don't care. That's kind of my take on the slap. Ike, what were your thoughts when you saw that video everywhere on Twitter and the news when you got up the next day?
I got to say, Ian, I'm kind of the same way. It didn't really matter to me. I think there's a without waxing poetic about this for a long period of time or ranting, I just think that there's a whole lot of distraction that we face in our daily lives, and in that particular case, I didn't care what happened. I honestly, I could see both sides of the issue. Whether it was staged or not, I can't say. And I really don't care whether it was or not. But I look at that and I see, what aren't we paying attention to, right? What is our attention being diverted away from, or what are we missing because of this coverage that we should be following?
Right.
And, I told somebody, I think at Fantasy, that I have used my first year political science class more in the last 6 years than I ever have. And one of the things that the instructor had told us very simply was never believe one news source.
Yep.
So that's like I said, I don't care about it. I'm sorry that it happened to the people that it happened to, and I wish that we could deal with things better as a society. But I think it's pretty telling of where we are right now.
Well, the only thing that would have made it awesome for me is if rather than shouting an F-bomb at Chris Rock, Will Smith would have been like, "Welcome to Earth." That would have been great. Rob, the slap, did you laugh at it? Did you sneer at it? Did you care even a little?
I don't really care, hardly at all. I will say this. The joke was in bad taste, but not only was it in bad taste, it was a bad joke. Like, it was boring. Like, how did Chris Rock even think people might laugh at that? I mean, that's just poor. I mean, from a craftsmanship perspective, the joke was boring.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was staged. I think it was, as true as it could be, as anything in Hollywood could be, because Kevin's right. Everything that's coming out of Hollywood these days is designed to distract. If you're going to have that much kerfluffle, let's at least have a good joke.
Yeah. Or maybe even like a real punch, not like a fish slap, which is pretty much what that was. He might as well have hit him with a dead mullet. But, it is what it is. All right. That's bringing us down to the hour, which is time for the White Flag.
White Flag.
White Flag is that segment where we tell folks what's on our radar coming up in the next few days, next few weeks before our next episode. Ike, you're the special guest host, so I'm going to let you go first on this. It can be anything, man. It can be a project that you're working on in the writing world. It could be a book you're looking forward to read. It could be a television show you're looking forward to see, man. What's on your radar coming up?
Say for a couple things that I'm looking forward to from a reader perspective. My friend Gama Ray Martinez is releasing a book tomorrow called God of Neverland, which follows Michael Darling from the Peter Pan story and his going back to Neverland to rescue Peter Pan as an adult. And I had the opportunity to read an advanced reader copy after Superstars. It's a phenomenal book. Really looking forward to folks finding that and picking it up, because Gama is an incredibly talented author. Also looking forward to the, let's see, from a reader perspective, a little bit later this summer, my friend Ronnie Verdi has a book, and I just completely lost the title of it. Sorry, Ronnie. Ronnie's a tremendous fantasy writer. He writes under the name of R.R. Verdi, V-I-R-D-I, and really excited to see his book coming out. Couldn't be happier for the guy. He's just a tremendous author and does a tremendous job as a storyteller, and is just an overall phenomenal human being. For me, for projects working forward, looking up at my board right now, I've got, of course, I'm working on The Misfits now, which is my next 4HU novel, which will complete the Peacemaker storyline. Looking forward to LibertyCon in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm still probably about a 50% probability to actually go to the convention at this point. I've got some day job hang-ups there that I'm trying to work through right now, but hopefully we're going to be able to get there. And then got a couple of short stories that are due by the end of the summer for some major anthologies, which are going to be pretty fun to write.
Awesome. Rob, how about you, man? What's on your radar?
Well, this week, Cam mentioned it, opening day of baseball season. That's always been a big thing for me. It's going to be a little wonky this year because of the timing. I've got a bunch of work that has to get done this week to get everything out to its goals. But that being said, it's baseball season. I can get back to one of my routines during baseball season is look up the scores and, how players did as I'm kind of lying in bed getting ready to fall asleep. As part of the joy of that is to look at box scores. I'm that kid who looked at box scores every day in the USA Today and in the local paper way back when that's all we had, and I still do it, even if it's on the MLB app or something like that. As I said, we've got a release that's coming out today. I'm excited to see how that goes over. I think it's a fantastic novel, so that's a blast. a month from now or so, my book, The Door into Winter, is coming out. I'm obviously really looking forward to that. I'm so excited to be a part of the Valkyries project, which is in the hit world that Marisa Wolf has done. I got to write a story that I had a lot of fun with. Was a little whimsical with, mashed a lot of genres and things together, which I don't always get to do sometimes, and really had a great time playing with it. I'm not sure the exact release date, but we're looking at late summer, early fall, as last I recall. And then also coming out in September is another anthology that I'm over the moon excited about. Kevin can be blasé about, Bane this and Bane that, but my first Bane release actually is coming out in September. I'm in No Game for Knights, which is the noir fantasy or the noir speculative fiction anthology of Larry Correia and Casey Azell, and it's a great honor to be a part of that. And I know Kevin's not blasé about Bane per se, but he's done it before, right. And this is my first time, and I'm so incredibly excited. And then on the road,
it's something worth celebrating, man. It's a tremendous honor to be part of one of those anthologies. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you talk about grilling. I was grilling, and I was waiting for the timer to go off to flip the steaks. Got the email from Casey that I had been accepted. And I'm literally flipping steaks and doing the whole Rocky cheer thing on my deck and yelling. And I'm sure my neighbors are looking out the window going, what the hell is that crazy dude doing?
It's like, those are going to be some phenomenal steaks right there. He is really excited about those ribeyes.
Absolutely. So there's that. And I obviously am so excited about New Mythology Press. And again, as things are ramping up, it's taken some time because there's been so much foundational work over the past year that I've been working on. But a lot of that stuff's coming to fruition now. And I'm looking at the workload coming out, and I'm looking at the number of books we're going to have coming. And I'm sort of like, whoa, see if I can keep a hold of this tiger. But it's exciting because we're really doing some neat stuff and getting some people some opportunities and man, the books I've read so far, it's a good book when it's 3:00 in the morning and you've already read almost all the way, but there's only 15% left. So might as well finish it, even though it's 3:00 in the morning and you have to get up at, 8:30, whatever, which I normally get up at 8:30. It's still, what the heck? It was a great book, and I had to know the end, and I'll be so excited to put that one out. So much coming, and I'm just really enthused about what's happening.
Awesome. Yep, that's the mark of a good book, man, when it's 3 a.m. and you want to keep on reading to close it out. No doubt about it.
I've got a quick alibi. My friend Ronnie's book is called The First Binding. I can't believe I forgot that.
First Binding. All right,
The First Binding.
Awesome. Well, in my neck of the woods, work just continues on The Last Argonaut. Whipped up a fresh batch of Warball Wednesday posts for today, actually. So those will continue to roll out on Wednesday. So for those of you guys that want to know what this crazy thing is called Warball that I'm going to be talking about in this story, every Wednesday you get yourself a little graphic dose of what the game is about, who the players are, what the rules are, what the league looks like, what the worlds look like, and just something I'm trying to do to kind of entertain you guys for a little while I write the book. Not in writing land, the long-awaited return of Better Call Saul happens next weekend, and my wife and I will definitely be dialed in for that. Been a fan of the Saul Goodman character ever since Breaking Bad. He was so unlikably likable in Better Call Saul. That's a tough nut to crack, and I thought Bob Odenkirk really nailed it. I know a lot of people have kind of shied away from Better Call Saul because it's a much slower burn of a story than what you got in Breaking Bad, but I've liked it. I think the writing is stellar, the acting is phenomenal, and it's a well put together show. And knowing that this is going to be the end, I want to see how they close it out. I really, really do. So again, that starts next weekend, and then finally we got this thing called the USFL coming out, and I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm interested to check it out. You guys know I'm a big proponent of minor league sports just because I think it's awesome for families to be able to have the option to go do something and not break their budget. Again, we're living in a time right now when we're all freaking tightening our belts and pinching pennies. And it's nice to have some affordable entertainment out there in the way of sports that we can all load up and go do. Because let's face it, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and in most regards, the NBA, they've kind of set sail on a lot of folks in terms of ticket prices. And these give you an opportunity to go do that, whether it's a Birmingham Stallions game or whether it's a Durham Bulls game for minor league baseball, or the Carolina Mudcats or the Pensacola Ice Flyers. If you're a hockey fan, it's good entertainment for the buck, man. And I'm a big proponent of those, so I want to support them any way I can. So looking forward to the USFL. Want to say thanks again to Cam Rogers for coming on board the show to talk a little bit of Masters with us. That is, of course, on deck this weekend, and I will be on the couch like many others to watch how that's going to play out. Thank you to Kevin Ikenberry for coming on board to sub in, doing an awesome job as our special guest host this evening. Rob Howell, always a pleasure to chat with him too. Always a pleasure to sing the praises of our sponsors, Chris Kennedy Publishing. They are message-free sci-fi with a slice of fantasy. Go check them out at chriskennedypublishing.com. Say hello again to the Bleav Podcast Network, folks. You can learn more about them at Bleav.com. And thanks, as always, to the International Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy Authors for presenting our Podmail segment, iasfa.org for that one. In the meantime, for us, you like us, you love us, you want to show us some love? Do it on your favorite podcasting platform. If it'll let you leave stars and a review, we appreciate that. YouTubers, like the videos, subscribe to the channel. Helps to bump us up through the ratings and help people find the show. So for Rob Howell, for Cam Rogers, for Kevin Ikenberry, I am Ian J. Malone, and we will see you next time on the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. See ya.